What is up, fellas? Lady fellas. Welcome back to Just Nuts, guys. Today I have a deck profile. I'm a little sad, I'm a little disappointed that I can't do this in person. I love doing the cards in hand deck profiles, but honestly, I'm just at a point right now where I can't get the staples I need for this deck and for a lot of my decks. So you may see some deck profiles for me doing this because, but I've tested them online, so it's not like they're untested just because I don't have the cards. I've done the testing. I know the builds that I want to run. It's just like when literally like 9 of the cards I would need to proxy because like combined those 9 cards are like almost $600. You know what I mean? I'm just like, So like, it's like Ash Blossom, Pot of Extravagance is like 75 on pre-sale. Trap Trick has gone up to like almost 35. Infinite Impermanence has gone up to like 100. Boral Sword is like 60. Ash is still 20 until the common comes out. So like there are some things really good on the horizon. Like once the common comes out, Ash should be way like less than $10. So I can easily get a playset of that. Hopefully Indulgence or Extravagance will drop after the set calms down a little bit, the hype train drops down a little bit. Hopefully it gets closer to 50 because then I might grab a playset. Trap Trick is really on a high because of Eradicator Epidemic Virus coming off the ban list and Thunder Dragons being really hyped up for Trap Trick. After that, I'm not too sure Trap Trick will stay up that high, so hopefully if it comes down I can get my other 2 copies of that. And Impermanence is getting a reprint in dual power. So like literally on the horizon, there's like reasons to believe I can get them in the future. I don't want to wait. We have a new format. People are excited. I've had multiple people on the first deck profile I uploaded let me know like, hey, I want to see a new deck list. But I'm rambling, so let's just get into this. I'm sorry, all right? And this is the best way I can do it. And there's new cards anyway that I don't have anyway, so let's just get into it, all right? So for the monsters, not a ton has changed. The only hit on the new ban list that really affected us was Grinder Golem, which does change things around a little bit, but not a ton. So obviously 3 Lilith is your main monster in the deck. It tributes. If you have Lair up, it tributes your opponent's monster. It's a quick effect. You set a trap straight from the deck. Next, we have Tour Guide from the Underworld. This is one of your other really good normal summons if it resolves. I mean, if it doesn't resolve, like, it is what it is, but, if you draw this and no other monsters, like, you just have to go for it. If it doesn't work out, you can put a monster on board at least, and hopefully you have the back row to protect her, but you just got to play her because with Skarm, she's really, really nice to combo off. And Sangan, too. I mean, she still works with Sangan pretty well. And not even Lilith. I mean, people sleep on the fact that this just pulls out a 2000 beat stick. If you just need to beat over something, even though Lilith won't have her effect, you could just pull Lilith out, and then Lilith's 2000 because its effects are negated. So that's something, 1 Skarm. I know it's a slow search, but it's a 2000 booty. It at least protects you until next turn. If it leaves the field, you will get your Lilith, you will get your Tour Guide, you will get whatever monster you're looking for to actually, make more of a push next turn. Graph is here as kind of the replacement for Doomdog Octhros that I had in the last list. Doomdog was only there to search Grinder. Grinder's banned. No reason to play Doomdog now. All the other, I literally looked at the entire list of all level 8 fiends. They're terrible. Literally, they're terrible outside of Grinder Golem. So, Graph is here as just kind of a second Skarm almost because, like, think about it. If Graph leaves the field, he's special Skarm. Skarm will destroy herself. And then searching you on the end phase. So it's kind of like a turbo card to Skarm. It's almost just like playing 2 Skarm, which I guess I could have, but I think playing Graph and Skarm is better than playing 2 Skarm. I think. Don't quote me on that. Then we have 1 Sangan. Got to keep Sangan. He searches you Ash. He searches you Tour Guide. He searches you Skarm. He searches you anything with less than 1500. It just can't use its effects. And yeah, he's there as part of your ties play. You always go into him on your ties play if you can. So that's your level 3 lineup. That's what I wanted to play. 6 was just, to me, 6 doesn't feel like enough for Ties of the Brethren because one of the worst feelings in this deck is drawing Ties of the Brethren, but no level 3s to resolve ties with. So I did want to play 7 instead of 6. It's not a huge bump, but I feel like it's enough to me where I'm not playing so many normal summons that my hands are getting clogged with monsters, but I'm not playing so few normal summons that I'm not seeing my best play essentially in the entire deck. So I think 7 is good for me. Next, we have Arima. I love Arima. You can't not love Arima. He's so versatile. If you don't have Lair, he's Lair. If you have Lair, he's your normal summon, and going second is actually pretty good because you just tribute your opponent's monster to draw a card or search Diabolos. which is pretty dang good. So I really like Arima. I like that he can be dual like that, because one of the problems with running terraforming for me was, like, if you see terraforming plus a Lair, it's just 2 Lair, and they're completely redundant. Whereas if you see Arima plus Lair, you've got 2 cards that can be different roles. That Arima can be Lair, or he can fill his own role as being like a decent normal summon for the deck. So I really do like that he can be both. He's just versatile. Next, for the cards you never want to draw, these are pretty much the only 3 cards in the entire deck you never want to draw. It's your artifacts. I mean, it's not even always that bad to draw them if you can get Heavy Storm Duster out. But yeah, they're bricks, but, you know, Scythe will lock your opponent out of the extra deck, and Moral Attack will pop 1 card, and also get themselves on the field as decent beat sticks. Next, I play only 1 Diabolos. Don't need more than 1 Diabolos. I'm telling you, if you're playing Lair, don't play more than 1 Diabolos. It's just not worth it. As long as he doesn't get banished, even if your opponent outs him, he goes to grave, and he's probably going to bring himself back at some point in the duel. So, like, you just need 1, and once you get it in circulation, it could be obnoxious for your opponent to try and deal with. And then I play 2 Ash Blossom. I know it's only 2 Ash Blossom. Oh, what a sin, but this deck's not really about hand traps. That's not really the big goal of this deck. Plus you have Sangin, which is, you know, if you make your main play, which is ties, you're going to end up with an Ash in hand anyway. So that works for me. Anyway, into the spells, we play 3 Lair of Darkness. Nothing too surprising here. Gets you tokens on the field. Also gets your opponent's tokens on the field. You need to be wary, and I do this all the time, and it messes me up because I'm not careful enough about my opponent's turn. And I'll end up using Lilith on my opponent's turn. I'll end up using her effect to tribute an opponent's monster, but then they get a token, and I always forget about the token. I don't forget about it, like I don't just forget to give it to them, but as I'm planning out what's going to happen next turn, I completely plan out without keeping the token in mind, and then that messes up how much like damage, how many monsters I thought I could clear in the battle phase, and so on. And then sometimes I'm forced to pass into their turn while still having the token. So be wary of the tokens you give your opponent as well as yourself. Then we have 3 Pot of Indulgence. This is the new pot card. It's really expensive right now. Hopefully it drops. I really hope it drops, but we don't really use the extra deck that often in this deck, so Indulgence is totally fine by me. I mean, like, nothing is just so crucial that it's like I can't banish any of this stuff, so this is just a perfect Pot of Indulgence deck. Desires can get in the way because you are playing these traps that you want a good amount of, and like so that Lilith can resolve them and get the one you want, so that like messes with that. You also have some one-ofs that like you don't want to banish and stuff, so Desires didn't really work, but Indulgence works in this deck like a dream. I also play 3 Duality. I've gone back to playing 3 Duality. I took it out and I was trying out card Demise, but I just think the deck does just enough special summoning to where Demise is not worth, or not even just special summoning, but we have just enough cards that if you do draw them, on the end of the turn, having to send them to grave is like not worth. Like you have the Ash Blossoms, you have the, and then the 10 normal summons. Like literally 12 cards in your deck, you're just like not trying to see off Demise, and that was just enough for me, and not being able to special summon. But I know Duality doesn't let you special summon either, but also Demise doesn't work with with Indulgence, because Indulgence says you can't draw cards for the rest of the turn, but you can add them. Boom. So Duality can be activated after Indulgence, which I really, really like. And Duality is also like that middle ground of not having to play Terraforming, where it still can be copies of Lair. Hopefully, like if you look at the top 3 cards of your deck, hopefully you see either Arima or Lair, if that's what you're looking for. If not, it can be, if you already have Lair, it can just be whatever else. So I do like the versatility of this card being, you know, one of 3 cards you pick, and this deck doesn't special summon a ton. If you have this and Ties, you're just gonna Ties. Like Ties is just too strong, and if Ties is ashed or negated in some way, then you just go for Duality, and it's fine. It's like your backup play. So but this is really good. The spells have been really good so far. These have been really good for consistency, which has been one of the biggest problems in the deck. This build has been one of the most consistent I've played so far, which is usually the main problem in the deck, but it's been pretty good. So there, Ties, and just like I said, it's the strongest play in your deck. You actually usually want to ties on one of the other level 3s and not Lilith, because you want Lilith to be 2,000. You don't want to give your opponent the option of just beating over her because she's only 1,000. So you'd rather force your opponent to feel the pressure of needing to get bigger monsters on the field, and then you just tribute them, and then you punish them for it with your your stun cards. So really like that. So ties is just your best power play deck. And then another thing that did change is I bumped Trap Trick from 1 to 3. 3 is just good. 3 is just right. Actually, in the last deck profile, did I have Trap Trick yet? I might not have even had it yet, but I did eventually get it, and I was playing at 1 just because you gotta. Because like if you played the 2 ofs and you activate Lilith, you gotta throw the 1 Trap Trick in to like be the 3rd copy, right? So you're guaranteed to get the 1 because it is random when they choose what trap. But now I play 3 just because like drawing it is also like so good, because the mentality I have behind this card is that this card is my 4th, 5th, and 6th copy of Sanctum. It's my 3rd, 4th, and 5th copy of Frontlines or Back to the Front, Storm Duster, Dynamiscus, and Infinite Impermanence. So now essentially I'm playing 6 and 5 of all of these cards. So they're like way more consistent in seeing them. And at the same time, it's not like overlapping, which means like if I see Trap Trick and I see Sanctum, it's not like I have 2 Sanctums and one's dead. I have a Sanctum, and then the Trap Trick then is just a pivot card that can be any of the other ones I have. So this card is just super good for just getting to whatever trap is best for that situation, whatever one, and it's reactive too. So it's not just you draw the trap and you're like, well, I'm stuck with this trap. You can see what your opponent's playing, see what kind of hand they have, see what kind of play they're going for, and then react accordingly and play a trap, you know, for whatever instance you're in. So I really, really thought Trap Trick needed to be at 3. It's just too good consistency-wise, and that's what I'm trying to worry about. Biggest problem was consistency. I'm really focusing on that here. 3 Sanctum, like it might be one of the most impactful trap cards in the game right now. Just straight up, like no extra deck, and you get a 2200 beat stick. Really strong, and that's why I also play the Moral Attack just in case. I am playing against Altergeist or True Draco, something that really isn't affected by not having their extra deck, so I really did want to have the Moral Attack just in case. Then I played 2 Back to the Front, dropped this from 3 to 2. I learned that seeing this in my opening hand was not as good, and if I do play 3 Trap Trick, then even if I do see 1 in my opening hand and I need the other later in the duel, I have 3 Trap Tricks, so I can just put the 1 with 2 Trap Tricks and it's still fine, like searching with Lilith. So 2 is just better for me. I won't see it in the hand as much, just because you never know if your opponent's going to go after your back row first or your monsters first. And if they destroy this before letting me put any monsters in grave, then it's just I don't even have a chance to activate it. So I dropped it from 3 to 2. 2 Heavy Storm Duster. I want it just in case I do play those back row decks. It's such a blowout, like strong card against Altergeist and Striker. It's really, really good in those matchups, and I just want it. 3's too many, because if I do play Thunder Dragon, I'm not trying to see a 3 of that really might not impact the duel at all. And then 2 Dynamiscus. So this is like the other new card. This card is pretty good. It's monster removal, and that's what it's here for. There's nothing else generically that was as good as for monster removal. I looked at Compulse, but bouncing stuff is not always that great, especially if you're playing a deck that doesn't really use extra deck monsters as much, or if the threat is not an extra deck monster. And I don't like the discard. The discard can be rough sometimes, but when it isn't, just getting to banish something, not even sending it back to the extra deck, is like it's gone. I don't, out of sight, out of mind, don't even have to worry about it. So overall, I just think this card's better than Compulse, and it also does make up for that discard by bringing itself back the next time a trap is activated. So you do get a little bit of monster, monster on the board action to help make up for that discard for cost effect. And you do have some decent discard for cost, like cards in the deck too. Skarm, Graph, Diabolos. It's mostly it, yeah. So not a ton, but you do have some, which is good. And then Infinite Impermanence is the only other hand trap you play. I felt like 4 hand traps was enough for me. I'm playing 42 right now. I wish it was 40, but I'm having so much trouble actually figuring out what to drop. Maybe if I dropped like Graph, because Graph is like the extra monster here, and like maybe 1 duality, maybe that 40 card deck would be enough and still be consistent enough. I'd have to test it out to see. I mean, it's such small differences, but this is the 42 deck I'm running so far. This to me has been like the most, if not very, very close to the most consistent and best Lair of Darkness build you can play right now. But let's move into the extra deck. So the extra deck is like not good. I mean, it's so basic right now because you don't use it. Like, the main time you use it is like after you go through turn 1 and you tribute 1 or 2 things and you end up with 2 tokens on your field, or on your opponent's turn you're able to stun them enough to where they weren't really able to get your tokens off the field, and next turn you go back into your turn with 2 tokens on the field and maybe a Lilith still on the field. So, and then maybe make a Link 2 to try and remove something or whatever. But other than that, you don't really use the extra deck that much. So pretty basic stuff like Link Spider to get an effect monster on the field instead of the tokens. Cerberus, 2 Phoenix, because if you do play Indulgence, you don't want to not be able to go into Phoenix in those specific situations. 1 Akashic if your opponent's a fool and put something up in there pointing to you, you know, you can just fucking say goodbye to that dude. Witch's Apprentice, which is only really good if you activate Lair. Or if I guess, I mean, either a duel where you don't have Lair or a duel where Lair was destroyed, because otherwise everything's dark and you're buffing your opponent too. So it's like, meh. Like, I guess it floats when it dies, but like your opponent's probably going to do their best to out it without destruction to not give you a chance to, you know, float. Decode is interesting because he does have that protection effect that tributes. It doesn't tribute your opponent's monster unless it's one that he points to, which is kind of lame. But if you do have Lair, if you do it on your turn, you will at least get a token for it. So, you know, it does help you kind of get tokens out in a way. Nightmare Unicorn, staple. Nightmare Griffin. You won't make this very often unless it's like a long, strenuous duel. And you make him late, and you're just trying to revive one of your spell or trap cards, and just, you know, depends on the situation, but get something back. Boral Sword for OTKs. You actually do go into this a little bit, not a ton, but a lot of games are grindier, and the grindier the match, you can just end up with like a full board, and you're just like, okay, 4 monsters in a Boral Sword and attack for game. It's really good. And then as far as the rank 3s go, not super important, but Anganeer to protect something, at least make a beat stick that can protect itself. Grand Pulse to out back row. If you don't have discard fodder for either of these, then you want to go into either Grand Pulse or Stone King Darius to out a monster. And then I also play Gossip Shadow as kind of disruption, where if you can get 2 monsters on the field, if you can just tour guide into Skarm, make this guy, and then at least you have a negate, which is not a great negate, but it's not the worst. It's a decent stun card. And yeah, so that's what I'm playing right now. Like, the extra is just not used a ton, so this is just like the most basic utility that there is right now. But there are some cards on the horizon. I want to talk about these at the very end right here. So as far as cards that there are out and I thought about playing instead of Graph, was like Edgem Sabers. So this is a level 3 Dark Fiend. If it's in your graveyard, you can place 1 card from your hand on the top of your deck and then special summon it back. That's a once per turn, so you can actually do it every turn, which is kind of interestingly nice. But it's not like insane. Like, and if you ties, you can't special summon for the rest of the turn, so you wouldn't be able to do it until next turn. But it does help with link plays. I mean, it really does. It's just slow to help with the link plays, especially if like you have to ties them out. But if I did play this card, it would make like Foolish Burial more interesting in the deck, where like I actually been thinking about putting Foolish in anyway, trying to find room, just because you can Foolish for Graph to special Skarm, and at least it's like without your normal summon, you got Skarm on the board, which is pretty nice as well. So Foolish, you can also Foolish Diabolos, you can Foolish Skarm herself just to search on the end phase. You do have some Foolish targets, and this one would be another one to add to that. And then also Fiend Prodigy, or Terrifying Toddler of Torment. He's a flip monster, so when he's flipped, he actually Foolishes any Fiend from deck to grave. Another thing, Foolish Graph, Foolish Edgem Savers, whatever you want. And also, if he is sent from hand or deck to the graveyard, you can special summon him in face-down defense position. So if you went to a Nightmare play and discard him, if you discard him for Dynamiscus, he could special summon himself back. So that is actually kind of nice. 2,000 defense, 0 attack, so actually a big booty. He's okay. I mean, I think he's interesting for the fact that like he as well makes like Foolish Burial a little more of a good kind of starter card in the deck, whereas otherwise it's just not. It's just kind of like a weird, okay setup card and not worth. These guys would maybe make it worth. And then as far as some cards that are coming out in the future, we have Police Patrol of the Underworld. This card is like straight up actually good. This would be like the best card in your extra deck. You'd go into it more than any other card. So pretty much how this card works is that it can take any 2 monsters, but if they are dark and have different names, then it gains this effect. You can tribute 1 monster, then target 1 face-up card on the field, place a patrol counter on it, and pretty much if the card would ever be destroyed, you can remove that counter instead. So it just gives a little protection counter, which is nothing crazy. The effect is not great, but it tributes 1 monster generically, which means if you have Lair of Darkness on the field, you tribute your opponent's stuff. So if you had a board where you had Lilith and something else, and you already used Lilith to tribute, and you still had another problem on the board, you could then link up into this thing, and then you'd have another way to remove another monster and put some protection in at the same time. So you could put that counter on your Lair of Darkness, so that if your opponent is planning on outing Lair and that's how they plan on winning, that ain't gonna work. You put it on herself, just so she lives a battle, she lives a destruction. I really wish she was like 1700. That would make her so much better, because her effect is so mediocre that I don't even think it'd be like insane to ask for 1800 as for her attack. But she's so small. She's still 1000, which is brutal, but you know, what are you going to do? But honestly, I would even consider playing 3 copies of this card just because of like Pot of Indulgence, and just trying to guarantee that this is the only real card in the extra deck that you legitimately care a lot about. So I might just play 3 of it and just almost guarantee that it'll survive through 1 Indulgence. But this card's really actually low-key good with Lair of Darkness. Cherubini, because Tour Guide into Cherubini, Graph into Cherubini, actually. There are like some mini combos. They're not insane. Let's see, it doesn't have a protection effect. Nah, it sends. I was going to say, does it tribute to protect itself? But it does. It sends. It doesn't tribute. But it's still like a decent card that can be made with tokens generically. That's another thing to consider. If you didn't really go through Graph or Scarm in the duel, and you're able to token, like have 2 tokens on the field by the next time it gets to your turn, just 2 tokens into this thing, Foolish Graph, Graph special Scarm to one of its own, Scarm won't be destroyed, and you're looking pretty decent. I mean, you're 500 plus 1000, so 1500 attack, you know, not amazing, but, you know, I think he's a decent pivot card. Might as well play him if you can. Security Dragon, just because, like, if you link Spider, one of the tokens, you can make this and then bounce something, so decent. And then this guy, he's a link 3. Like, I don't like the link 4s because they take a lot of your tokens and a lot of your monsters, but that don't get on the field very fast, just to make 1, and if your opponent's able to out it, it's like you put all those resources into something that left the field anyway. But this card's interesting, and if you use Diabolos as one of the materials for him, he does become actually a really big threat. Can't be can't be targeted. Yeah, can't be targeted and cannot be destroyed by card effects, and he's a 3000 beat stick, so it becomes a pretty legitimate threat. But that's where I'm at with the deck so far, guys. Let me know what you think of this list and what I got here. If there's anything you think I'm missing, if there's something, throw your ideas at me for sure, because that's what I'm always looking at. I'm not the overseeing god of Lair of Darkness. I think this is the best deck I've made so far, and if you think there's something better, let me know, because I'm totally down to update this list and just find the best, make this list the best that it can. I really love this deck. I love the fact that it can out almost any monster in the game, regardless of protection, other than cards that are protected from spell effects. That's the one thing that is stinky, because you cannot tribute Ultimate Falcon, because Ultimate Falcon is technically unaffected by Lair, and Lair is the connecting effect that allows you to tribute it, so you cannot tribute Ultimate Falcon. Remember that. But there you go, guys. I'm going to leave it there. If you like this deck profile, if you like this video, you know, subscribe to the channel for more stuff from me. Like I said, give me your suggestions for the deck down below. I'm really interested to see if I'm missing anything here. This is just the most concise list I can come up with at the moment. If you have a way you think I can get down to 40 cards, the best way, the most efficient way, let me know as well. And yeah, I think I'm going to get out of here. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Peace.